Okay, today in the shop I've got another Roland MC-505 with no sound. So I've got it hooked up to an amplifier, and I'm going to put it into test mode with the sine wave. Okay, to get the 505 into test mode, I'm going to need to hold down these three buttons on the D-beam controller and then the function button here at the same time as you're holding in, as you turn on the power. Okay, the screen is going to now say test mode. If I hit enter, it's going to go through all the tests in series, and you can get stuck when it comes down to the card test if you don't have a card. So to skip to any test, you hold down shift and then the number of the test. In this case, I'm pressing number 9, and I'm going into the let's turn this down here, to the sound test. So that means that there should be a sine wave coming out of the left channel only of the mix output, which is exactly where I have this cable directly to the amplifier coming out, and there's no sound. So let's take a look at the board. Okay, so we're looking at the board with the orientation like this, the jack's facing towards me, basically the cover off. It's still turned on, so I'm going to be careful here. I'm just going to show you the signal path before I measure everything with the scope. So according to the service manual, I'll put a link to that in the description. This is the tone generator here, and all the sound is generated here in this tone generator. From down here in these pins here in this area, there's a bunch of test points right here, and it goes over to these 3 digital to analog converters. This is for your mix out, your direct line 1, direct line 2, headphone amplifiers over here, and then your signal is going to also go to this cable, which goes to the volume pot and the low boost pot, and then it comes back and gets sent out of these channels here. So it's going to come out of the digital to analog converter. Basically, you got a clock signal up here, upright, and then this serial sound, whatever it is, I should be able to see that. And then to this IC55 here, this is an op amp, a 4570 op amp. They also use like 5812, I think is the number. They're the same pretty much. So your output pin 1 is pin 1, and output 2 is pin 7, so that's here. Your inputs are pin 3, which should be coming from this digital to analog converter, should come into pin 3, and whatever the hell the other pin is, 5 I believe it is, yeah. Pin 5 and 3 are the inputs, and 1 and 7 are the outputs. And then it goes from that op amp into another op amp here, this IC, before it goes down into the jack. Now you'll see here at the bottom, these transistors. So these are part of the muting circuit, which according to the service manual, all the sound could be working just fine, but it could get muted through these transistors here. And the way to tell that is if this pin over here on the bottom left is at negative 15 volts, you should have audio going through. If it's at positive 5, it's muting. So you should be able to probe right here on pin 2, and if it's negative 15 volts, your audio should go through. And if you're poking around, which we will do here, these op amps have negative 15 volts on one side and positive 15 on the other. Those are the voltages, the only voltages into the audio circuit. I know my 5 volts working. There's 3 voltages, 5 volts your ground, and positive 15 and negative 15 on the board. So you'll want to verify all those voltages. If you don't have the, say, negative 15 and you've only got the positive 15 going on the op amp, it's not going to work. So now I'll try to get into a frame where you can see the scope as I'm poking around. Okay, first let's do some voltages. So you see I've got my meter on DC voltage. I'm just going to place the negative here, see what's going on. These op amps here, I should have, there's my negative 15 volts on pin 4, and then on pin 5, nothing, because that's your output. On pin 8, there's my positive 15. And that should be true for all of your op amps. Negative 15, positive 15, negative 15, positive 15. Even over here in my direct output, negative 15, positive 15. That doesn't mean that the op amps are working necessarily, but I just wanted to show you that that's the kind of voltage you should be getting. And then here, let's go down into that mute circuit I was talking about. So there's a negative 15 volts. If that was positive 5, I would assume that that meant that the circuit was muted. Okay. So now let's take a look here and see what's going on with the oscilloscope. Okay, now I've got my scope hooked up. I've just got the ground hooked to the chassis. I know that's not the best, but I just want to show you the kind of signal that's coming in. So coming out of this chip here, you know, there's a few test points where you can see on this I'm only getting a clock signal. So I got a clock signal, if you see it here, and that's, you know, going into each digital to audio converter. Now I should be getting a serial signal on the next pin down, and there's nothing. Now this is where I'm sending the sine wave. Nothing. I do have the clock, but not that. So over here there's some test points. Again, nothing. I know that the clock is on one of these, and there's also a circle with an arrow next to this tone generator chip, and I'm not getting any signal here. I'm not sure if this is the problem. I've got another 505 that I'm going to go through. You've got a couple test holes here. Got that. I'm not. I should be going through the pins here. But let's show you the op amp. So this is my output of the op amp. I've got nothing. How about the output of the digital to analog converter? So there's 2 pins that these are coming out of, the outputs. And that is pin 6 and 11 for each channel. So down here, nothing. 6, 11, nothing. But those are also connected to these caps directly. So you don't need to poke around there. You can just go right to the cap. But I've got no signal going into the input. So what would it be amplifying? Nothing. Now I know that I can look into this deeper And I can get sort of an oscillation of the operational amplifier working. But let's take a look at another 505 and see if we have the same signals coming out. Okay, I've got a different, a whole lot dirtier 505 here. I'm going to get into the test mode. Oh, okay, so right away you're hearing the wave, and I can adjust it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it down while we do this really quick. Okay, we've got it hooked up the same. Let's compare. So I'm going to poke at this circle with an arrow. Well, right away I've got something going on here. Let me hit. I got something pulsing into my digital to audio converter. Wow, look at that. That seems like a different signal, but there's your clock. And then let's see what the serial data looks like. Okay, so that's what the serial data of, hey, produce a sine wave looks like. Now let's see an input on my op amp. First, let's prove that that's coming out onto these caps. Be sure of that. Maybe not. Output of the op amp. There's my audio signal. Why doesn't it look like a sine wave? I don't know, maybe I'm doing this wrong. Input pin 3. Still all that stuff. Basically, it's a very different signal than I was looking at before. Some of you may say, well, that's because you don't know what you're looking at, and you're probably right. So let's see. Input 3 and 5 into this operational amplifier, and output 1 and 7. Very different signal. Okay, so this out of this operational amplifier, maybe that's where it would look more like, there we go, audio. So it looks like in the other board we have an issue where out of the tone generator I'm not getting this signal. Any of the, let's go over some of the test points here. Okay, I'm not getting that signal. And there's nowhere farther back to go. I mean, it's basically from this tone generator to here. You know, I know that my RAM is all working fine. I know that all the operating system is working fine. This is memory, and it's working the same. So it looks like I'm gonna have to change the tone generator, which is a little frightening. So let's look over here just to understand how this works better. Get this out of the way. One of these op amps is a send. Pin 1 through 4 is a send and return of your audio. and then you've got ground actually in the middle where they put this red mark. Okay. Okay, for fun, now we're gonna look at a square wave that's being sent. You can hear how it's different. Okay, that's obviously not the sound signal, but I got that signal here. You'll notice over here, I'm at every one of these test points, I'm getting a signal of some kind. Clock. Come on. Serial of what that wave is. There's that wave. That's probably a better representation of it right there. Why would that be a square wave though? Well, hopefully this helps. So I guess we need to swap out the tone generator chip. I also like to take a look at these signals from the volume pot. Okay, let's see if we can get any farther. Okay, before I change that chip out, I wanted to test something. I noticed that this cap here is kind of the only component sitting there on that line. Now, in the service manual, all you're going to see is a block diagram with tone generator goes to these three chips. And on the there's no schematic of that anywhere, so it won't tell you what pins are going from where to where. But anyway, this is a cap tester. Just want to show you the result I got on this cap. Now that's really high. It's supposed to be 100 microfarads, and it's like 13,480. Here's another cap, just like it, same rating and everything next to it. About 100 UF, 1.52 ESR. This a way lower ESR. But still, they're at about 100 UF. So I'm going to change this cap out, and I'm going to look around and see if there's anything else that looks really wacko. I don't know if that'll help, but it's a whole lot easier to change that cap. Here's another one. A whole lot easier to change those than it is to change this 160 pin quad flat package. So I do have one of those on a donor board I want to show you. So this is for a JX305, and a couple of the Roland pianos also use this same tone generator. So this is a scrap board, and I might use that. Alright, so I'll get back to you. Okay, I've taken a break, looked at the schematic. Before I start desoldering components, I want to poke around and do a couple other things. I found out there's a 5-volt voltage regulator right here. I'm going to take this board out for a better view later, but there's 3 pins in the far leftmost towards me. Okay, it looks like it's pushing out 5 volts. That's really good news. So the next thing I wanted to do is turn this back up. We're going to go back into another test mode where we're just going to check the DSP test. So holding down these 3 buttons. I must not have been pushing hard enough. Okay, into test mode, shift, and this time we're going to press 10. That's the DSP sound test. And it says it's okay, so that means that that's the self test for that chip. It says it's good. Okay. So that here's my current theory. If you see all these red dots on all these caps, those are the caps that tested out of spec with this meter, and I'll show you closer up underneath the microscope. But I wanted you to see an overview of where all the bad caps are. There's nothing over here. This is the low boost circuit. None of those caps are bad, and my main direct output, one channel of it is fine, and the main one is mostly fine except for one cap. But all these other caps, and even over here by the signal, are not, they're not testing correct, and especially there's one down here. So let's take this out and get a better look at it. Also, a quick bit of when you're fixing equipment, you got to take a look at this. All came in parts and I put it together. You got to take a holistic, I guess you'd say, look at it. And you see how bent up this is, and from some angles you can even see that the chassis is bent, which means that this was dropped with the cord plugged in, at least into the back here. But was it plugged into the wall when it fell? I don't know, but that could make a power surge. I mean, theoretically, I'm just goofing around here, poking around, but it could be all these caps are bad. So let's continue to take it apart. Okay, this is an overview of the whole main board for the 505. We're going to go through the flow of audio, and I'm probably going to correct some mistakes I said earlier in the video with some of the IC numbers, and then I'm going to make some more mistakes because I'm just going to go through this. So in the block diagram, I'll show you a little bit later. Here's again the tone generator, your DACs. These are 4570. They're calling them buffers or low pass filters, but they're operational amplifiers. So let's just worry about that for right now. So coming out of these pins, now when I did the DSP test a second ago, in the service manual it says if I have an issue with that test and it fails, that these are the pins that I need to check. This is IC3 right here. So I'm assuming that means that the self-test in here is okay. Maybe you'll see all these red dots on these caps. Maybe these are enough to cause issues with the signal getting from here to the DAC. That's my theory. So the flow of events is it comes out of, there's 3 independent channels, or actually 6 rather, to stereo, 2, 4, 6. This is your mix line out, from which is derived your headphone. your direct line 1 and direct line 2, and both have a left and right, so stereo channel. And these two direct lines work just like this, except this goes off to the low pass, the low boost, and then to your volume board, and then back again. So let's go through it. It's going to start here. This is for me to understand what I'm looking for too. The tone generator goes into the DAC on these upper right pins. So that's 16, pin 15 and 16 on the DAC. Then it's going to go into IC55, which is here, and then this next one. So IC55, hold on. Now in the service manual, this signal is called MR and ML. So mix left, mix right, I guess. So they're going from 55, IC55, this is IC11, 55 to IC40, which is here. From IC40 it goes over to IC43, which is this guy here, and from after this signal it splits off into two places. It's going to split off here to go up into here for your low boost circuit, and then down here, which goes into IC47, which is this. So from here to there, and from here to there, and from here it passes through two caps. These two guys, that's the input, and then the output, I believe, is these two, are these two, and it goes into this jack right here, and this jack goes into the main front board with your volume potentiometer and your low boost potentiometer. Those are just like controlling the amplifier circuit. All the other potentiometers and buttons get interpreted through signals over here and then go into that, and that's all that magic happens in here before it ever comes out. So all the analog control is just your volume amplitude. Then it comes back out of the panel in through this same bundle of cables. Let's see if I can do that, to IC48, which I believe is this guy. IC48, and the inputs are cap 320 and 321. So this guy here, and this one next to it. So low send kind of goes up in this way, and then this is the mixing op amp that mixes the signals in together, and this op amp down here is IC49. That is your headphone operational amplifier. This is your headphone jack. That's the cap for it. This cap, I believe, might be for that, sorry. And these two are for this jack, and then they go into smaller caps, into an inductor, and finally out of the jack. So that's the signal flow, down, 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 over here, back out, and then from this op amp into, through these circuits here, the muting circuit, into the jack itself. So also this is that 5-volt regulator. This is IC32. It took me forever to find that on the service manual, and this writing is pretty small. So it looks like my power, your main power comes in over here. This is the LCD. This is the the operating system and the flash memory. The CPU, I believe this is some DRAM? Potentially, yeah, so I'll have to look at that. I'm positive that that is all working just fine, and that with the self-test, if that's telling me that's okay, that's makes me happy, but you know, like, I'm not hearing anything. So if all these caps by the power supply went, you know, maybe they shorted to ground, or they're super high compared to the others, and let me show you that before I move on, so I can show you exactly what I mean. So you see, these are all 10 microfarad caps down here, way down by the jack. Nothing touched them. Apparently they're all fine. I always do a few times, because sometimes they'll say it's leaky or whatever, but look, it's saying 9.95 with the ESR of 5.3, and I think with the 16 volt 10 cap 10 UF cap, I think it's 25 ohms can be the highest. A little bit high on that time also again, but the main point is I'm getting this 10 UF, right? So here's the same cap up here, the same value. That's like 100 times higher with low resistance. So maybe, is that completely shorted out? Probably enough to beep, right? And the same with these guys over here. So anything I put red on, it just was testing funky. Hello. Oop. That one actually tested okay that time. Well, maybe I'll go back through before I remove, and I'm gonna test them all as I go through. But I noticed that these fatter ones that are 100 microfarad, look at there, it's like 10 to 100 times multiplied what it's supposed to be. And then I've got the same value cap. Let's see where I can get to one. And see, it's at 100. So I'm just gonna swap out the ones that I've marked as bad. I've got some replacements, and oops, and hopefully not wreck anything in the process. But that's why I'm not looking forward to that. So let's remove the caps and cross our fingers, and then we'll check actually the crystals. There's one crystal and two crystals, so we'll check the frequency, but I'm pretty sure that's fine. Okay, wish me luck. Okay, here's a block diagram from the service manual of what I was talking about. Let's zoom in on what we're concerned with. Okay. So headphones, mix out. This is the volume pot here, and this is the low boost pot. So let's instead of backwards, let's start where it starts. According to this is that IC3. This is memory, and wave data comes from somewhere else into this tone generator, but then it comes out here into 3 DACs, 11, 12, and 13, those 3 tiers I showed you. This is the direct line 1, that was the one in the middle, and this is the one on the right, direct line 2. So it goes through these operational amplifiers. So we're concerned with IC11, where it goes in, and here it says 40, 43, and 55, but it's actually 55, then into 40, then into 43. And at 43 it splits off. This is the connection, to the panel board, and then up to the low boost for your low boost, and that goes into the pot also through this connection, and then it comes back, but that connection is what that represents. And any change you make, anything coming out of the main volume is going to go into another, that IC49, which is the headphone op amp, and then over here into the return operational amplifiers and circuitry and capacitors, into finally JK2, which is the jack that I'm plugged into. So here's a block diagram, but I don't know which pins come from IC3, and there's no mention there's no schematic of this chip, and there's no schematic of the DACs. It just, I'll show you here in a second. Okay, and another main diagram that's just a drawing. This is the CPU and peripheral, the panel, this is the memory, the D-beam controller, and the tone generator. This is that main chip where the sound comes out and into the jacks. But this is all they're drawing. So that ML signal I'm going to show you, the main or mix left and right, the direct 1 and direct 2, it's just an arrow from tone generator to output. No pin numbers. Okay, so let's dig farther. So let's look for, where does this start? ML and MR. That's what I want to know. Okay, this is the only mention I can find in the service manual, I guess, of the generation of this ML signal and MR. So main left and right, going into IC55, then 40, and then into 43, and then it splits off, and you see this, they call it normal, probably not like my buddy Norm. So it goes from this to two separate places. If you scroll up in the service manual, this describes the low boost. All of this stuff is low boost, and then you're mixing the left and the right in that op amp. This is everything in the upper left hand part of the main board. Muting circuit tells you, negative 15 volts when you're on. That's the same with the octave control, sorry, or plus 5 volts. Here, this represents that connection that goes to the panel board for your volume send and your volume return. So here's where that norm L and R also come in to get sent. So this is the sending IC, this is IC47, and also off of, this is getting compared to your low boost return goes into the other side of the op amp. Okay, so now my return from the volume control and that panel board and that jack with all the wires, it comes into C320 and 321 to ICs 48 and 49. So 49 is for the headphone jack and 48. Then it goes basically into this muting transistor and an inductor, and then straight to the jack. So that's the whole path of the sound. That's everything that can go wrong. And you see here they have all these op amps are wired pretty much the same, except for the headphone has a extra capacitors on there, but they all have the positive 15 on pin 8 and negative 15 on pin 4 throughout. So that's it, and here's your mute control circuit coming out of IC34, and then this main, but here's your positive 15 and negative 15, and this is your control pulling of all of those transistors in there, which are these, sorry, those are the op amps, into the mute circuit. So whenever this is pulled to negative 15, then it's unmuted. So then we've got a CPU and you know, memory, and then the panel boards, but that's it. There's no schematic of the power supply in here or anything with their proprietary chips other than the CPU. So this also, I want to show you, this is showing me what I'm supposed to see when I'm doing that test I showed you for the sound coming out. This is what it should have looked like on my oscilloscope when it's a sine wave and a square wave, and it kind of, you know, maybe I'm not calibrated correctly. It looked close to that. But also I'm going through these suggested fixes, such as, okay, check the DACs 11 through 13 if there's no sound. Check around the power supply. Okay. Digital signal and filter circuitry. That's like the whole thing. If op amp is hot, none of them were hot. And matter of fact, when I was poking around, I could hear it on my amplifier. So I think it's amplifying no signal. Short circuit of caps and resistors. I'm not worried about resistors, caps. I don't know. I guess could be. Seems to be something that happens a lot. Mute circuitry seemed fine. Control voltage of the this is the octave control, -15. So I can go in and check that actual one on the mute circuitry, but I have -15 on the end of all those other transistors. Yes, more than 4 volts is on pin 6 of IC34. It's actually the 15 volts. Filter, I don't have the problem because it's not too loud or soft. The feedback resistor. Okay, I don't know which the resistor is, but okay. And mute circuitry. The octave control here, and looking for square waves. So we'll try all that after I recap it. If not, I might just post the video as is and ask for people who are smarter than I's opinion. Okay, so let's go to recapping. Okay, quick update on the recapping process. I want to thank a YouTuber by the name of Brad THX. He has some repair videos on the JP8000 and the MC-505. And I've decided to recap the whole thing, even though I tested these caps with this same tester out of circuit, and they all were testing fine. Even though in circuit I showed you they were wonky, that's probably because I was testing something in the circuit as well. That's just my experience. So a few things on the recapping. In the service manual, when you look under capacitors, all you're going to find are these poly caps. That's what's in the service manual under the index of capacitors. But in the schematics, you'll have the actual values of the rest of the caps. So there's two main values for this board. And you're going to see there's two different sizes of holes. So for example, here we've got one's a little larger. That's 100 microfarads at 16 volts. The smaller ones for the most of the board is 10 microfarads at 16 volts. And that's almost the whole board. The only exception is these ones I've got reinstalled here. These are on the DACs, and these are 47 microfarads at 6.3 volts. You can put in higher voltages, but when you have a higher voltage rated cap, you might have a higher ESR rating also. And this is audio, so I don't really want to do that. And then over here, the only other exceptions Your big cap here is a 470 microfarad at 16 volts. Then the second one is a 22 microfarad at 16 volts. I did put a 50 volt in there, that's what I got. A 220 at 16 volts, another 220 microfarad at 16 volts, and finally a 1 microfarad at 16 volts. And this is for your reset circuit, for your CPU reset. So I'm not 100% optimistic that changing all the caps will work, but that seems to be what's happening with a lot of the other systems I'm seeing, and I'm trying that before I try removing any of these other chips. So the only other update I have is for this power supply here. I've replaced this is the original. You'll see I had a broken edge here, and Roland has these, it's a little strange, for their power inlet, and I bought a few of these which are very similar, but you clip the end here, and the problem is these are wider. Let me see how they're wider. So I actually drilled a small hole through the PCB. You can't really tell, but that seemed to be much nicer. So here we go. Let's see what's next. Let's see if these new caps will bring this thing back to life. Okay, you can see I've recapped everything, got everything connected. I haven't turned it on yet. I'm not a praying man, so this is where I quote Samuel L. Jackson in Jurassic Park, where he said, "Hold on to your butts." Powering on. Any sound? Nope. Play? Nothing. Oh boy. Alright. Getting a little crackle. I wonder if I could try setting some direct line outputs. I can double check if I got everything installed correctly. Let's see, I'm gonna poke around. I've got it just playing a random pattern. Let's see if we got anything different. There's my clock signal. And look, I actually do. I have a serial signal. I didn't have that on the DAC before. So let's see, output. No output. On the op amp. So let's see, I wonder if there is an output off of the DAC. Doesn't look like it. Let's see about, that's nice. Checking this chip. Look, now we're getting signals coming out of the chip. That seems to be audio. So I could probably, let's trace it down. See if we can't find where the audio begins and ends, and maybe we have an additional problem with an op amp. Oh, it could be because I had a bad connection with the meter here, but it looks like I've got an output on a lot of these op amps. So I'm gonna have to continue just to trace it down and why I'm not getting a return. Maybe I installed something wrong, but it looks like, yeah, I'm not sure. So I'll keep poking around. Maybe it's a reset with the audio. So what I'll do is I'll go into the factory reset and then we'll try it again. Quick update, I decided to use a signal generator to sort of go through the op amps, and I went backwards. You can kind of hear the square wave. It does sound different coming out of each one. But hear that how strange it sounds coming out of so I'm wondering if the DAC is maybe a problem. So I'm gonna go back and see, I'm putting the signal right here on the DAC output. I'm gonna try swapping these DACs out. Okay, I've changed out the chip. Let's cross our fingers. Holy. Okay, we got sound, but we got some issues, so maybe that's an op amp, but that is a totally different story. Wow. Well, okay, so let's start poking around. I just want to show you the serial data that's coming out now. That is way different. We didn't have that before. I might have misspoken when I saw it, but that is a different signal. So let's keep poking around. Okay, I've got audio on one side. The other side sounds like completely garbled. And I'm wondering if the DAC isn't fried also. When you turn it up, it might break out. There it goes. And it just turns into digital junk. I think that's the DAC. Okay, I'm gonna try something here. I've got the amp hooked up to the direct output. So let's see if I can't get some audio out how to do that. So the way to do that is go to part select whichever, let's say the drum beat, and then this goes to tempo mixer, this goes to EFX and out. Now I guess I'm supposed to hold shift and then, ooh, look at that. There's my drum. Hey, you don't like that? Looks like this slider's goofy. So that means that's telling me that the DAC for Direct 1 is working without any distortion. So that's the DAC. Here's something interesting I'm going to show you. I'm going to go back into the test mode. You hear that sine wave? That's coming out of the audio from the direct one. That's what I want. Strange. Sine wave out of there. Sine wave direct out. It's funny when it does the right side, it also comes out of the left. Direct 2. Mix out square wave. See here, I got a square wave. But what's weird is when I play when I play a singular note, it comes out fine. Maybe it's not polyphony, but listen. So I'm thinking that that's at the very least a DAC. So back to ordering and waiting. Okay, here's an update. I've plugged in the amplifier into the direct out, right? And what I'm gonna do here is assign everything to the direct one out where it's connected. So I'm getting, it is a little wonky. Hello. Like something's not correct still, but all the audio is playing out of the, if I assign it to one of the direct outputs. This volume won't affect that. And notice when I let go of the shift button, anytime I try to have the rhythm assigned to the direct one, it's like it can't take all the channels and it filters out the drums until I press shift again. So, long story short, I think I have another plan of attack. I think that this distortion sounds like this. It took me a while because I took a break in between this before, you know, taking off random parts, and I'm not an electrical engineer. And that sound reminds me of when I fixed an old rack mount like effects unit, and I changed out the RAM in that, and that was the problem. It was the RAM. So my new plan of attack is to replace the RAM. It was only $7, so I have to wait for that to come. But I'm thinking that that's more logical of a problem, because all the op amps are testing fine. I did finally get some in, but I don't want to just swap those out. So I'm leaning towards the RAM. Wish me luck. Okay, I've got the right channel working a little bit. I want to show you a few things. So coming out of the right channel, of the DAC on the output, which is pin 11. Come on. Okay, I've got the right channel going here. This is the input of the op amp on the right channel. This is the input on the left that sounds all scratchy. And this is the same way it comes out of the DAC. That's why I'm thinking at least the left channel problem is probably the DAC. But I know that the right channel, when I turn up the volume, it also distorts. So I need to find out where that's happening. So I got my input here. Output looks the same. Let's turn it up. Okay, so it's not that first op amp. Turn it down. Come on, dude. Alright, so let's poke around. Wow. Now this is the next stage, and it's looking completely different. So I might also take out some of these op amps and just test them in an op amp tester out of circuit. That might be easier. Poking around a little more, the signals look the same from IC 55 and 40, but when I jump to 43, my input is nothing, and so is the output. So it's like this isn't doing anything, and then I'm suspecting that might be the problem. Well, let's take them all out. So for comparison, it looks like that op amp might be working. I'll check the rest of them. This is a op amp tester by Synth Chaser. You can look for him on YouTube. An update. I've swapped out the DACs. I've checked a lot of the operational amplifiers, and while I am getting that static, I noticed that it's only happening, at least on this pattern 1, on channels 3, 4, and 6. I'll show you what I mean. I can press play. See how you're hearing it? It's not exactly great. Sounds like there's some distortion. I'll mute everything. Here's the drums. 2. This is on the main out. See, there's 4. 3 is all staticky. 5 is okay. 6. 7 is okay. So with 6, so it's only certain channels, at least on this patch. Then I went to another patch. Do you hear that beeping? Or the static sound on the output? Like, rhythm. This is pattern 12. You hear that? Only when the sound is triggered does it do that. And then listen to that. After a little while, it just starts this humming. Even when I press stop. And oh, what in the heck is going on? So could it be the RAM? That's my next option. I'm not sure. Next, I did some digging into the service manual for the JX305. Now the JX305 chip that I put into this unit, I noticed that it doesn't have the same output. It does not go through the same kind of DACs. And if you look, this manual actually has the chip, the RA01055. It's the same chip, and it has up here that your outputs are usually to pins 9, 11, and 12 for output 0, 1, and 2. So the output pins are different, and it could be that I'm using the chip for the 305 and it's not 100% compatible. They have the same markings but a different like batch number on the chip. I can put a picture in, but it doesn't matter. So that's where I'm at now. I think that now I need to ask the community what your opinion is. So here's a close-up of the chip from the MC-505 manual, and it looks like your outputs are actually coming from the right side over here, and then they go underneath the chip itself and come out to these test points and then go down here to the DACs. That's the line I was following. So the outputs are actually here and they go through these resistors. So that would be the same pins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the arrow, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's your main output there. Okay, 10, 11, 12. Those are your directs there. Okay. Now on the 305 manual, that's not as clear, and you see it's flipped upside down. Here are your outputs over here. So here the 9 isn't going anywhere, but the other ones are, again, they're going through these resistors and they're following these tracks over here. So it's the same chip, but maybe a different output, you know, like depending on whatever the audio signal is doing. So it is a little different. They do use a different crystal with a different frequency, but I'm not exactly sure if that would matter. Like, why am I getting some sound that's correct? And I can still assign these channels that are not sounding right. I can assign them to a direct out and they sound just fine. But this one, it seems like now I'm getting some static or something. So my question to you is it possibly the DRAM? So let me take a picture of that so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is what I'm talking about, the DRAM here. Do you think that that's a possibility? It's going to be kind of hard for me to source any kind of that chip right now, ordering things from China, and plus I don't want to shotgun everything. And the only luck I had finding some were these RAM sticks that use the exact same RAM, and I can take those off and put it on there, but I'm not sure if that's going to work. So I'm going to stop the video here, send out I guess a plea to anybody who's watching this to maybe give me your advice, because I am an amateur. I'm doing what I can with these machines, and I don't want to spend too much more time on things that I'm not doing correctly, or if I'm just chasing ghosts. Also, I got a better oscilloscope, so that's good news. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for any help I might get in the future. Thanks.